Deep beneath the surface of history, there lies a story of chaos and transformation, a story where the unstoppable forces of nature collided with the fragile strength of human civilization. Picture the vibrant streets of an ancient city, alive with trade, culture, and ambition. Now think of that same city reduced to ruins in a single, catastrophic moment. What caused these dramatic shifts in the course of history? How did entire civilizations rise, fall, or adapt in the face of natural disasters? Today, we're diving into the turbulent relationship between humanity and the planet, uncovering how earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, and droughts didn't just destroy, they reshaped the very fabric of ancient societies. From the sudden collapse of the Minoans to the mysterious decline of the Indus Valley, we'll explore how these events didn't just end lives, they altered destinies, leaving behind clues that still challenge and inspire us today. This is a journey through time where the Earth itself becomes a key player in the story of human resilience, adaptation, and survival. The sheer power of nature has always been a force beyond human control, capable of reshaping entire landscapes and civilizations in moments. For ancient societies, the raw destructive force of natural disasters wasn't just a threat, it was a reality that could erase years of progress in an instant. Without the advanced technology and warning systems we rely on today, these civilizations were left exposed to the whims of the earth, the skies, and the seas. Earthquakes could level cities in seconds, floods could drown fertile lands, and volcanic eruptions could darken the skies for years. The unpredictability of these events made them even more terrifying. Imagine living in a world where the ground beneath your feet could split open without warning, or where a storm could arrive with such fury that entire villages were swept away. For ancient peoples, survival often depended on their ability to adapt to these sudden, devastating changes. And yet, time and again, nature proved that even the most advanced societies were no match for its fury. This vulnerability sets the stage for our first civilization, a society whose rise and fall were shaped by the relentless power of natural disasters. Let's journey back to one of the most iconic examples of this dynamic, the Minoan civilization of ancient Crete. The Minoan civilization, flourishing on the island of Crete, was one of the most advanced societies of the Bronze Age. Known for their intricate palaces, vibrant art, and extensive trade networks, the Minoans were a powerhouse in the ancient Mediterranean. But around 1600 BCE, their world was shaken literally by a cataclysmic event that would alter their destiny: the eruption of Thera, the volcano on what is now Santorini. This wasn't just any eruption, it was one of the largest volcanic explosions in recorded history. The sheer scale of the disaster sent shockwaves, both literal and metaphorical, across the region, leaving a trail of destruction that the Minoans could never fully recover from. Archaeological evidence paints a vivid picture of the devastation. Layers of volcanic ash found as far away as Egypt and Turkey tell us just how massive the eruption was. On Crete itself, researchers have uncovered deposits of pumice and ash, along with signs of tsunami debris, suggesting that towering waves crashed into the island's northern coast. These tsunamis would have obliterated ports, flooded cities, and disrupted the Minoans' vital trade routes, which were the lifeblood of their economy. Imagine entire fleets of ships loaded with goods like olive oil, pottery, and textiles swept away in an instant, leaving the Minoans cut off from their trading partners. But the impact went beyond immediate destruction. The eruption spewed vast amounts of ash into the atmosphere, which likely triggered a volcanic winter. Crops failed, food supplies dwindled, and the once thriving Minoan cities began to struggle. The palaces, symbols of their prosperity, were either damaged or abandoned. Without their trade networks and agricultural stability, the Minoans' influence in the Mediterranean waned. Neighboring civilizations like the Mycenaeans saw an opportunity to rise in power, eventually overtaking the weakened Minoans. What's fascinating is how this single event reshaped the course of history in the region. The Minoans, once a dominant force, never fully regained their former glory. The eruption of Thera serves as a stark reminder of how fragile even the most advanced societies can be in the face of nature's fury. And yet, their legacy lives on not just in the ruins of their palaces, but in the stories of resilience and adaptation that echo through the centuries. The Indus Valley Civilization, flourishing over 4,000 years ago, stands as one of humanity's earliest urban marvels. Its cities, like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, were masterpieces of urban planning, complete with advanced drainage systems, grid-like streets, and thriving trade networks. But around 1900 BCE, something shifted. This once thriving civilization began to unravel, and the evidence points to a powerful force: climate change. At its peak, the Indus Valley relied heavily on the predictable rhythms of nature. The monsoon rains brought life-giving water to their crops, while the Gagahakra river system acted as a lifeline, nurturing the fertile plains where their agriculture thrived. But over time, the climate began to change. Monsoon patterns grew erratic, and the once reliable rains became scarce. Prolonged droughts set in, and the Gagahakra River, once a bustling waterway, began to dry up. This environmental shift had devastating consequences. Without consistent water, crops failed, and the agricultural backbone of the civilization crumbled. The cities, once vibrant hubs of trade and culture, began to empty as people migrated in search of more reliable resources. Archaeologists have found evidence that Mohenjo-Daro, one of the civilization's most advanced cities, was gradually abandoned. The streets, once teeming with life, fell silent. But why didn't the Indus Valley people adapt? The answer lies in the scale of the challenge. Unlike smaller, more mobile societies, the Indus Valley was deeply rooted in its urban centers. Their infrastructure, economy, and way of life were all tied to the stability of their environment. When that stability vanished, the social and economic systems that held them together began to collapse. What makes the story of the Indus Valley so compelling is its relevance today. It serves as a stark reminder of how closely human societies are tied to the natural world. Even the most advanced civilizations are not immune to the forces of nature. The Indus Valley's decline wasn't caused by a single event, but by a cascade of environmental stresses, a lesson that resonates deeply in our modern era of climate uncertainty. As we uncover more about this ancient civilization, we're reminded of the delicate balance between humanity and the environment. The Indus Valley story isn't just a tale of the past, it's a mirror reflecting the challenges we face in a changing world. The Maya civilization, once a beacon of cultural and scientific achievement, faced an abrupt and dramatic decline around the year 900 CE. What led to their downfall? The answer lies in a perfect storm of environmental and human factors that crippled their society. At the heart of their collapse was a series of severe droughts that stretched for decades. These prolonged dry periods devastated the Maya's agricultural systems, which relied heavily on predictable rainfall to sustain their crops. Without consistent water, fields withered and food supplies dwindled, sparking widespread hunger and desperation. But the droughts were only part of the story. The Maya themselves unwittingly contributed to their own vulnerability. In their quest to build vast cities and support a growing population, they cleared large swaths of forest for farmland and construction. This deforestation disrupted local weather patterns, making droughts even more severe. Over time, the soil, stripped of its nutrients, became barren and unable to support the crops needed to feed their people. The Mayas' advanced irrigation systems designed to capture and distribute rainwater suddenly became a liability as the rains they depended on grew scarce. As food shortages intensified, social unrest followed. The ruling elite, who claimed divine authority to control the rains and ensure prosperity, found their legitimacy crumbling alongside their fields. Communities fractured, and once thriving cities were abandoned as people fled in search of more fertile lands. The Mayas' collapse serves as a stark reminder of how even the most sophisticated societies can be undone by environmental pressures. Yet, the Maya were not alone in facing such challenges. Across the globe, other civilizations grappled with similar threats. From the Anasazi in the American Southwest to the Akkadian Empire in Mesopotamia, droughts and environmental mismanagement have repeatedly reshaped the course of history. These stories highlight a recurring theme: the delicate balance between human ambition and the natural world, and the profound consequences when that balance is disrupted. The story of Pompeii is one of the most haunting examples of how natural disasters can freeze a moment in time. In the year 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted with unimaginable force, burying the bustling Roman city under layers of ash and pumice. What began as an ordinary day for the people of Pompeii ended in tragedy as the eruption claimed thousands of lives and wiped out an entire community. But amidst the destruction, something extraordinary happened. The very ash that suffocated the city also preserved it, creating a time capsule of ancient Roman life. Streets, homes, and even the expressions on victims' faces were frozen in place, offering modern archaeologists an unparalleled glimpse into the past. This sudden and catastrophic event didn't just end lives, it reshaped the entire region. Pompeii was a thriving hub of trade and commerce, but the eruption brought its economy to a standstill. Nearby towns and cities reliant on Pompeii's markets and industries faced economic collapse. The cultural fabric of the area was torn as families were displaced and traditions disrupted. Yet the legacy of Pompeii endures, not just as a cautionary tale of nature's power, but as a vivid reminder of the fragility of human achievement. Volcanic activity has left its mark on civilizations far beyond Pompeii. From the ancient Minoans of Crete, whose society may have been weakened by the eruption of Thera, to the Mayans in Central America, who faced environmental upheaval due to volcanic ash clouds, these events have repeatedly altered the course of history. The story of Pompeii is just one chapter in a much larger narrative, a testament to how the Earth's restless forces have shaped, and sometimes shattered, the societies that dared to thrive in their shadow. Around 4200 BC, the Akkadian Empire, a powerhouse of ancient Mesopotamia, stood as a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition. Stretching across vast territories, it was one of the first true empires in history, uniting city-states under a single ruler. But this thriving civilization didn't just fade away, it was brought to its knees by forces beyond human control. The culprit, a catastrophic climate shift known as the 4.2 Kiloyear event. This wasn't just a local drought, it was a global phenomenon. From Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, the climate turned harsh and unpredictable. For the Akkadians, who relied heavily on agriculture, the consequences were devastating. Crops failed, rivers dried up, and the once fertile fields of Mesopotamia became barren wastelands. The empire's lifeblood, its food supply, was cut off, leading to widespread famine. As hunger spread, so did unrest. The Akkadian rulers, who had once commanded loyalty through their ability to provide stability and resources, found themselves powerless against the forces of nature. Communities began to fracture, and the centralized authority that held the empire together started to crumble. Archaeological evidence, like abandoned settlements and layers of dust in soil samples, paints a grim picture of a society unraveling under the weight of environmental collapse. But what's truly fascinating is how this event reshaped not just the Akkadian Empire, but the trajectory of human civilization itself. The collapse of such a powerful empire sent shockwaves through the region, leading to a period of instability and migration. People moved in search of fertile land, creating new cultural exchanges and conflicts. In many ways, the 4.2 Kiloyear event was a turning point, showing how fragile even the mightiest empires can be when faced with the unpredictability of nature. This story isn't just about the fall of an ancient empire. It's a reminder of humanity's enduring struggle to adapt to a changing world. The Akkadians built an empire that seemed invincible, but their reliance on a stable climate made them vulnerable. It's a lesson that echoes through the ages, highlighting the delicate balance between human ambition and the natural forces that shape our lives. The ancient Greeks lived in a land where the ground beneath their feet often trembled with terrifying force. Earthquakes were not just natural phenomena to them, they were moments of divine intervention, a reminder of Poseidon's wrath. But beyond the myths, these seismic events left a profound mark on the course of Greek civilization, shaping everything from their cities to their culture. Take the Mycenaean palaces, for instance. These grand structures, symbols of power and prosperity, were reduced to rubble by violent tremors around 1200 BC. See, the collapse of these palaces didn't just destroy buildings, it marked the end of an era, plunging Greece into a dark age that lasted for centuries. Yet from this chaos emerged a new way of thinking. The Greeks began to rebuild not just their cities, but their approach to construction itself. Sparta, for example, rose from the ashes of its own seismic destruction. The Spartans, known for their resilience, didn't just rebuild, they adapted. They redesigned their city with earthquakes in mind, using lighter, more flexible materials and spreading their settlements across wider areas to minimize damage. This wasn't just practical, it was revolutionary. Their innovations laid the groundwork for future architectural designs that could withstand nature's fury. But the Greeks weren't alone in facing seismic threats. Across the ancient world, civilizations grappled with the same challenges. From the Romans, who engineered aqueducts to survive tremors, to the Minoans, whose innovative use of timber reinforcements in their palaces showcased early seismic awareness, the story of earthquakes is one of destruction and ingenuity. Each disaster forced humanity to adapt, to rethink, and to rebuild lessons that resonate even today. As we move forward, we'll see how other ancient cultures faced similar challenges, turning devastation into opportunity. But for now, let's stay with the Greeks, whose journey through seismic upheaval offers a fascinating glimpse into how nature's power can shape the course of human history. The Nile River was the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, a force so powerful it shaped every aspect of society. Every year, like clockwork, the river would flood its banks, leaving behind a rich layer of silt that transformed the arid desert into some of the most fertile farmland in the ancient world. This annual event wasn't just a natural phenomenon, it was a divine gift, one that allowed Egyptian civilization to flourish for thousands of years. Farmers relied on the floods to nourish their crops, and the predictability of this cycle became the foundation of their agricultural calendar. It was a system so effective that it supported a population dense enough to build the pyramids, create monumental art, and establish one of the most enduring cultures in history. But the Nile's floods weren't always a guarantee of prosperity. While the Egyptians developed sophisticated methods to predict and manage the river's behavior, nature could still be unpredictable. In years when the floods were too weak, the fields would remain dry and crops would fail, leading to widespread hunger. On the other hand, when the floods were too intense, entire villages could be swept away, leaving chaos and destruction in their wake. These extremes weren't just natural disasters, they were existential threats. A single bad flood season could destabilize the entire kingdom, sparking food shortages, economic collapse, and even political unrest. The pharaohs, believed to be intermediaries between the gods and the people, were often blamed for these calamities, their divine mandate called into question when the river failed to cooperate. This delicate dance between the Nile and its people highlights a profound truth. Even the most advanced civilizations are deeply vulnerable to the whims of nature. The ancient Egyptians understood this balance better than most, building their society around the river's rhythms while constantly striving to mitigate its risks. Canals, reservoirs, and irrigation systems were constructed to control the water's flow, and meticulous records of flood levels were kept to anticipate future patterns. Yet, despite their ingenuity, they could never fully escape the river's power. The Nile was both a giver and a taker, a reminder that human progress is always intertwined with the natural world. This relationship between the Nile and ancient Egypt offers a timeless lesson. It shows how societies can thrive by adapting to their environment, but it also underscores the fragility of that success. The Egyptians' ability to harness the river's bounty was a testament to their resilience and creativity, but their struggles during times of imbalance reveal the limits of human control. In many ways, their story mirrors our own modern challenges. How do we sustain ourselves without exhausting the resources we depend on? The Nile's floods were a blessing and a curse, a duality that shaped one of history's greatest civilizations and continues to resonate today. Imagine a thriving civilization, its people building towering stone structures nestled into cliffs, crafting intricate pottery, and cultivating crops in a harsh desert environment. This was the ancestral Pueblos, a society that flourished for centuries in what is now the American Southwest. But by the year 1300, something changed. Their once bustling settlements, like the famous Cliff Palace, were abandoned, leaving behind only whispers of their lives etched into the landscape. What could have driven an entire civilization to leave their homes behind? The answer lies in the unforgiving forces of nature. For generations, the ancestral Pueblos mastered the art of survival in an arid land. They built complex irrigation systems to channel scarce water and stored surplus crops for lean times. But even their ingenuity couldn't withstand the relentless grip of prolonged droughts. Tree ring records from the region reveal a series of severe dry spells that stretched across decades, beginning around the late 1200s. These droughts weren't just inconvenient, they were catastrophic. Crops withered, water sources dried up, and the delicate balance of their ecosystem began to crumble. As resources dwindled, the ancestral Pueblos faced impossible choices. Food shortages strained communities, and competition for what little remained likely sparked conflict. The very land that had sustained them for centuries turned hostile. With no relief in sight, many began to leave their ancestral homes in search of greener pastures. This wasn't a sudden exodus but a gradual migration, as families and groups ventured south and east, adapting to new environments and integrating with other indigenous communities. The iconic Cliff Palace, with its hundreds of rooms and ceremonial spaces, stands as a testament to their ingenuity and a haunting reminder of their departure. But this wasn't just a story of loss, it was also one of resilience. The ancestral Pueblos didn't vanish. They adapted, carrying their knowledge, traditions, and beliefs with them as they forged new lives in unfamiliar land. Their migration patterns reveal a deep connection to the environment, as they sought out areas less vulnerable to the droughts that had driven them away. This shift wasn't just about survival, it was a profound transformation shaped by natural disasters. The droughts didn't just alter the landscape, they rewrote the story of an entire civilization. As we explore the remnants of their settlements, we're reminded of the fragility of human societies in the face of nature's power. and the enduring strength of those who adapt and endure. The sheer force of a tsunami is almost unimaginable, a wall of water rising from the depths of the ocean, surging with enough power to obliterate everything in its path. For ancient coastal civilizations, these catastrophic events weren't just natural disasters. They were existential threats that could erase entire cities overnight. Often triggered by underwater earthquakes, tsunamis struck without warning, leaving behind a trail of destruction that altered the course of history. Take the ancient Greek city of Kiloyear, for example. In the year 373 BCE, this thriving coastal settlement was a hub of trade and culture. But in a single, devastating moment, the ground shook violently and a massive wave swept in from the sea. Kiloyear was swallowed whole, disappearing beneath the waves. The city's destruction was so complete that it became the stuff of legend, with some even claiming the gods themselves had punished its people. For centuries, Kiloyear was thought to be a myth until archaeologists discovered its ruins buried under layers of sediment, a haunting reminder of nature's power. Tsunamis like the one that destroyed Kiloyear didn't just flatten cities, they reshaped entire regions. Coastal settlements, often built for easy access to trade routes and fishing grounds, were suddenly vulnerable in ways their inhabitants could never have anticipated. After such disasters, survivors were forced to abandon their homes, relocating inland or to higher ground. This mass migration disrupted established trade networks as ports were destroyed and routes became unsafe. For civilizations reliant on maritime trade, the economic fallout could be just as devastating as the physical destruction. But these events also sparked innovation. In the aftermath of tsunamis, some cultures began to adapt, building their cities further inland or developing early warning systems based on animal behavior and seismic activity. The trauma of these disasters forced coastal societies to rethink their relationship with the sea, balancing the benefits of maritime life with the ever-present risk of catastrophe. The legacy of ancient tsunamis is a sobering reminder of humanity's fragility in the face of nature's power. Yet, it's also a testament to resilience, a story of how civilizations, though shaken to their core, found ways to rebuild, adapt, and carry on. Volcanic winters are one of nature's most dramatic disruptions, capable of reshaping entire civilizations. When a massive volcanic eruption occurs, it spews enormous amounts of ash and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. These particles reflect sunlight, causing global temperatures to plummet. This phenomenon, known as a volcanic winter, can last for years, devastating agriculture and leading to widespread famine. A striking modern example is the eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815, which caused the infamous Year Without a Summer in 1816. Crops failed across the globe, food prices skyrocketed, and many communities faced starvation. But this wasn't just a one-time event in history. Centuries earlier, in 536 CE, a similar catastrophe unfolded. A mysterious fog shrouded Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia, blocking sunlight for over a year. Temperatures dropped and crops withered in the cold. Historians and scientists now believe this event was triggered by a massive volcanic eruption, possibly in El Salvador or Iceland. The Roman Empire, already grappling with political instability, faced widespread famine and economic collapse. This climatic crisis contributed to the empire's decline, showing how even the mightiest civilizations could be brought to their knees by nature's fury. The parallels between these events are striking. Both demonstrate how volcanic winters don't just disrupt weather patterns, they destabilize societies. Agriculture, the backbone of ancient civilizations, relies heavily on predictable climates. When that predictability vanishes, food shortages ripple through populations, leading to social unrest, migration, and even the collapse of governments. These eruptions remind us that no matter how advanced a society becomes, it remains deeply connected to the forces of nature. The next time you hear about a volcanic eruption, consider not just the immediate destruction, but the long-term effects that could reshape our world. For centuries, the Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, stood as one of the most advanced societies of its time. With its well-planned cities, intricate drainage systems, and thriving trade networks, it seemed almost invincible. But around 1900 BCE, this once flourishing civilization began to unravel. While earlier theories pointed to invasions or economic decline, modern research suggests that a combination of natural disasters and environmental shifts may have played a pivotal role in its downfall. One compelling theory revolves around tectonic activity. Geological studies reveal that the region experienced significant seismic shifts, which could have altered the course of rivers vital to the Harappan way of life. Imagine rivers like the Indus or the Ganga-Hakra lifelines for agriculture and trade suddenly drying up or changing direction. Entire cities dependent on these waterways would have faced catastrophic consequences, from failing crops to disrupted supply chains. Without water, survival itself would have become a daily struggle. Another factor that likely contributed to the decline was the spread of disease. Environmental changes, such as prolonged droughts or erratic monsoons, could have created conditions ripe for epidemics. As resources dwindled and populations concentrated in smaller areas, the risk of disease transmission would have skyrocketed. A society already strained by resource scarcity and environmental stress might have found itself unable to recover from such a blow. What makes the Harappan decline so fascinating is the interplay of multiple factors. It wasn't just one disaster, but a cascade of events: tectonic shifts, river changes, disease, and possibly even social unrest that collectively brought this civilization to its knees. This pattern isn't unique to the Harappans. Throughout history, the collapse of societies often results from a complex web of interconnected challenges, where natural disasters amplify existing vulnerabilities. As we piece together the story of the Harappan civilization, it becomes clear that their fate serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile even the most advanced societies can be in the face of nature's unpredictability. Their decline invites us to consider how interconnected factors, both human and environmental, shape the rise and fall of civilizations. And as we'll see, this theme echoes across other ancient societies, each with its own story of resilience and vulnerability in the face of disaster. Across the globe, from the ancient Mesopotamians to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, flood myths have been a recurring theme in human storytelling. These tales often share striking similarities: divine warnings, massive floods, and a chosen few who survived to rebuild. But could these stories be more than just myths? Many historians and archaeologists believe that these narratives might actually echo real, catastrophic events that shaped the course of ancient civilizations. Take, for instance, the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known pieces of literature. In this story, the gods send a flood to punish humanity, sparing only Utnapishtim, who builds a massive ark to save his family and animals. Sound familiar? It's remarkably similar to the biblical story of Noah's Ark, which also features a great flood sent by a higher power to cleanse the earth. What's fascinating is that these stories aren't isolated to the Middle East. In ancient Greece, there's the tale of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who survive a flood sent by Zeus. Meanwhile, in Hindu tradition, the story of Manu tells of a fish that warns him of an impending deluge. Even in the Americas, the Maya and Aztec cultures have their own flood myths, often tied to the destruction of previous worlds. Could these widespread stories be a collective memory of real, devastating floods or tsunamis that ancient peoples experienced? Some researchers think so. Geological evidence, such as sediment layers and flood deposits, suggests that massive floods did occur in regions like Mesopotamia and the Black Sea basin around the time these myths were first told. These events would have been so catastrophic that they left an indelible mark on the survivors, shaping their stories for generations to come. Beyond their possible roots in historical events, flood myths also served an important cultural purpose. They were cautionary tales reminding people of the power of nature and the consequences of human actions. In many of these stories, the flood is a punishment for arrogance, greed, or other moral failings. By passing these tales down through the ages, ancient societies reinforced values and warned future generations to live in harmony with the natural world. They also helped communities make sense of the chaos and unpredictability of their environment, offering a framework for understanding disasters that seemed beyond their control. In this way, flood myths weren't just stories, they were tools for survival, teaching resilience and adaptation in the face of unimaginable challenges. The Hittite Empire, once a dominant force in Anatolia, faced a challenge it could not conquer: the relentless grip of drought. Around 1200 BC, prolonged periods of water scarcity began to unravel the fabric of this powerful civilization. Crops withered in the fields, rivers ran dry, and the once thriving agricultural system faltered. With their ability to produce food severely diminished, the Hittites struggled to sustain their population, let alone maintain the surplus needed to support trade and military efforts. Trade routes, which had been the lifeblood of the empire, began to collapse as goods became scarce and travel grew perilous. The Hittites relied heavily on imported grain and other resources from neighboring regions, but as drought gripped the broader region, these supplies dwindled. This scarcity didn't just strain the economy, it also weakened the empire's ability to fund and equip its armies. The Hittite military, once feared for its advanced chariot technology and disciplined troops, found itself stretched thin, unable to defend its borders effectively. Internally, the strain of resource scarcity ignited social unrest. Famine and economic hardship fueled discontent among the population, leading to rebellions and power struggles within the empire. As the central government struggled to maintain control, regional governors and local leaders began to assert their independence, further fracturing the once unified state. This internal turmoil made the Hittites vulnerable to external threats, including invasions by the so-called Sea Peoples, a mysterious coalition of raiders who swept through the eastern Mediterranean during this period. The fall of the Hittite Empire serves as a stark reminder of how environmental factors can shape the fate of civilizations. Drought not only undermined their agricultural and economic systems, but also exposed the fragility of their political and military structures. This story of resource scarcity and its consequences is not unique to the Hittites. It echoes across history, showing how access to water and other vital resources has often been the deciding factor in the rise and fall of ancient societies. The Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BC stands as one of history's most dramatic turning points, a time when flourishing civilizations crumbled under the weight of interconnected catastrophes. Across the Mediterranean and Near East, societies like the Mycenaeans, Hittites, and Egyptians faced a perfect storm of natural disasters and human conflicts that brought their golden ages to an abrupt end. But what made this collapse so devastating wasn't just one event. It was the way multiple disasters stacked upon each other, creating a domino effect that no civilization could withstand. Earthquakes shook the foundations of cities, toppling palaces and temples that had stood for centuries. In some regions, entire settlements were buried under rubble, leaving survivors to rebuild in a world growing more unstable by the day. At the same time, prolonged droughts gripped the land, turning fertile fields into barren wastelands. Crops failed, food supplies dwindled, and famine spread like wildfire, weakening entire populations. These environmental crises didn't just threaten survival. They shattered the economic and social systems that held these societies together. Trade routes collapsed as kingdoms that once exchanged goods and ideas now struggled to feed their own people. But nature wasn't the only force at play. As resources grew scarce, competition turned violent. Invasions by mysterious groups, often referred to as the Sea Peoples, swept across the region, attacking weakened cities and further destabilizing the fragile balance of power. Some historians believe these invaders were themselves fleeing environmental disasters, driven by desperation to seek new lands. Others suggest they were opportunistic raiders, capitalizing on the chaos to expand their own influence. Whatever their origins, their raids added another layer of destruction to an already fragile world. What makes the Bronze Age collapse so fascinating is how it reveals the interconnectedness of human and environmental history. It wasn't just one disaster that brought these civilizations down. It was the way earthquakes, droughts, and invasions fed into one another, amplifying their impact. This complexity reminds us that history is rarely shaped by a single cause, but by a web of factors that can spiral out of control. As we look back at this pivotal moment, we see not just the fragility of ancient societies, but also the resilience of humanity in the face of overwhelming challenges. The Bronze Age collapse wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would eventually give rise to the Iron Age and the civilizations that followed. Natural disasters may have devastated many ancient civilizations, but some societies didn't just survive. They thrived by adapting in remarkable ways. Take the Inca Empire, for instance. Nestled in the Andes Mountains, they faced constant threats from earthquakes. But rather than succumbing to the chaos, the Inca engineered their cities with precision. Their stone structures were designed to withstand seismic shocks, using interlocking blocks that shifted during tremors without collapsing. This ingenious approach didn't just protect their homes, it allowed their society to flourish, even in one of the most geologically unstable regions on Earth. Meanwhile, in ancient China, the Yellow River posed a recurring challenge. Known as China's Sorrow for its devastating floods, the river could wipe out entire communities in moments. But the Chinese didn't just endure, they innovated. By constructing intricate systems of dikes, canals, and reservoirs, they tamed the river's fury, turning a potential disaster into a source of agricultural abundance. These flood control systems didn't just save lives, they laid the foundation for one of the world's most enduring civilizations. What's striking about these examples is the sheer creativity and determination behind them. These societies didn't see natural disasters as insurmountable obstacles, they saw them as problems to solve. And in solving them, they didn't just survive, they built legacies that endured for centuries. Their resilience reminds us that even in the face of nature's most destructive forces, human ingenuity can carve a path forward. Ancient civilizations were no strangers to the forces of nature, and their stories hold invaluable lessons for us today. The Minoans, for instance, thrived on the island of Crete for centuries, building a sophisticated society with advanced architecture and trade networks. Yet their downfall came swiftly, likely due to the eruption of Thera, a volcanic event so catastrophic it sent shockwaves across the Mediterranean. What can we learn from their experience? Resilience wasn't just about rebuilding after disaster, it was about understanding the environment and adapting to its rhythms. The Minoans, like many ancient societies, lived in harmony with the natural world, but their failure to anticipate the full scale of such an event reveals a critical blind spot, one we must address in our own time. Fast forward to the Indus Valley Civilization, a marvel of urban planning and water management. Their cities were designed with drainage systems, reservoirs, and wells, showcasing an early understanding of sustainability. Yet, when climate shifts brought prolonged droughts, even their ingenuity couldn't stave off collapse. This duality, their ability to innovate while still being vulnerable to nature's unpredictability, offers a powerful reminder: preparation and adaptability are key. Modern societies, with all our technological advancements, still face similar challenges. Rising sea levels, extreme weather, and resource scarcity demand that we look to the past for guidance. How can we balance progress with preservation? How do we ensure that our cities and communities are built not just for today, but for the uncertainties of tomorrow? The broader implications of these lessons are clear. Ancient civilizations teach us that resilience isn't just about survival, it's about foresight. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of human societies and the natural world. Today, as we grapple with the impacts of climate change, these historical examples serve as both cautionary tales and sources of inspiration. By studying how past cultures responded to environmental upheaval, we can better prepare for the challenges ahead. The question isn't whether we'll face natural disasters, it's how we'll choose to respond. Will we repeat the mistakes of the past, or will we build a future rooted in wisdom, sustainability, and respect for the planet that sustains us? One of the most powerful lessons we can learn from ancient civilizations is how they adapted, or failed to adapt, to the natural disasters that shaped their fate. Today, as we face increasingly unpredictable weather patterns and rising global temperatures, their stories hold invaluable insights for modern disaster preparedness. By examining how societies of the past responded to earthquakes, floods, and droughts, we can uncover strategies that could help us build a more resilient future. Take, for example, the ancient Minoans of Crete. Their advanced architecture, designed to withstand earthquakes, offers a blueprint for creating structures that can endure natural disasters. Similarly, the sophisticated water management systems of the Indus Valley Civilization demonstrate how sustainable practices can mitigate the effects of climate extremes. These ancient innovations remind us that resilience isn't just about reacting to disasters, it's about planning ahead. Modern disaster preparedness relies heavily on early warning systems, a concept that has its roots in history. The ancient Mayans, for instance, used celestial observations to predict seasonal changes and prepare for potential droughts. Today, we have technology like satellite imaging and real-time data analysis, but the principle remains the same: knowledge is power. By combining historical wisdom with cutting-edge tools, we can develop more effective ways to anticipate and respond to natural disasters. Community planning also plays a crucial role. Ancient societies often thrived because they worked together, pooling resources and knowledge to overcome challenges. In our modern world, fostering strong, interconnected communities can help us weather crises more effectively. Whether it's through local disaster drills or collaborative rebuilding efforts, the spirit of cooperation that sustained ancient civilizations can inspire us to build a safer, more united future. History isn't just a record of the past, it's a guidebook for the future. By studying how ancient societies navigated the challenges of their time, we can find innovative solutions to the problems we face today. From sustainable practices to early warning systems and community resilience, the lessons of history are more relevant than ever. After all, the best way to prepare for the future is to understand the past. The mysteries of ancient disasters are far from solved. Even today, researchers are piecing together clues to unravel what truly happened during events like the Bronze Age collapse, a period around 1200 CE, when thriving civilizations across the Mediterranean suddenly crumbled. Was it invasion, drought, earthquakes, or a combination of factors that brought down these powerful societies? The truth remains elusive, and every discovery seems to raise more questions than answers. For instance, the Minoan civilization, known for its advanced culture and stunning palaces like Knossos, vanished almost overnight. Some point to the massive eruption of Thera, a volcanic event so powerful it may have triggered tsunamis and climate disruptions. But was that the sole culprit, or were there other forces at play? Modern science and archaeology are shedding new light on these ancient enigmas. Advanced techniques like DNA analysis, satellite imaging, and climate modeling are helping us reconstruct the past with unprecedented detail. For example, recent studies of ancient tree rings suggest periods of severe drought may have destabilized entire regions, while underwater excavations are uncovering sunken cities that hint at forgotten histories. Yet, despite these breakthroughs, many questions linger. What caused the sudden abandonment of cities like Ugarit during the Bronze Age collapse? Why did the Minoans, once a dominant maritime power, disappear so completely? These puzzles remind us that history is not a static record but an evolving story, one that continues to surprise and challenge us. The beauty of these mysteries lies in their ability to spark curiosity. They invite us to explore, to question, and to imagine. What might we learn next about these ancient civilizations? How will new technologies reshape our understanding of their triumphs and tragedies? The answers are still out there, waiting to be uncovered. And for those of us fascinated by the past, that's what makes the journey so thrilling. Whether you're an avid history buff or simply someone who loves a good mystery, there's always more to discover. So, what do you think? Could the next great discovery about ancient disasters be just around the corner? Only time and curiosity will tell. Throughout history, natural disasters have been more than just moments of destruction. They've been turning points, reshaping the fate of civilizations. From the volcanic eruption that buried Pompeii to the earthquakes that toppled mighty empires like the Hittites, these events have repeatedly shown how fragile human societies can be in the face of nature's power. Yet, time and again, ancient peoples demonstrated remarkable resilience, rebuilding their cities, reimagining their cultures, and finding ways to adapt to a changing world. The story of these civilizations isn't just about loss, it's about survival, innovation, and the enduring spirit of humanity. These ancient lessons feel especially relevant today. As we face our own challenges with climate change, rising sea levels, and increasingly unpredictable weather patterns, we can look to the past for guidance. How did the Minoans of Crete recover after the Thera eruption? What can we learn from the Mayans' efforts to adapt to prolonged drought? These stories remind us that resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about learning, growing, and finding new ways to thrive. So, as we reflect on the past, let's also think about the future. How can we build societies that are not only prepared for the unexpected, but also capable of turning adversity into opportunity? The answer, perhaps, lies in understanding that the forces of nature are not just threats, they're also teachers. By studying the triumphs and tragedies of ancient civilizations, we can find inspiration to create a more resilient, sustainable world for generations to come. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history. If this video sparked your curiosity, let me know in the comments what lessons from the past do you think are most important for our future. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Together, we can explore the mysteries of history and uncover the wisdom they hold for our world today.